Okay, so let's see. We've got the side head pieces done and the eyebrows and the cheeks attached. And so this is the inside, right, where we did all our stitching. And this is the outside, where the stitching is less visible. So I'm just going to set those down here, and we're going to move on to the snout piece. So I mentioned in one of the earlier videos that you can see there's this little flare here, and that's what's happening at this connection. There's just a little flare. And so you want to make sure that that gets attached to, adjacent to the eyebrow. The bottom is really straight, like a really straight line, and this guy has that wing. Okay, so same thing on the snout pieces. We're going to stitch these two tiny little darts. So this one is the nose dart, and I've got my needle threaded and with a knot. And for these darts, you're really only going to need like 3 stitches maybe, but you want to make them nice and close together. And there's our last one, just like, yeah, 3. And sometimes I do a 4th one that's just right on top of the last 3rd one for extra strength. And then I'm going to move my knot back and do that ending knot we talked about. Okay. So that was the nose dart. And then we're going to do, then we're going to do the chin dart on that side, and we'll repeat that on the opposite side of the snout. Let's trim off my little end here. Okay. There we go. Okay. So these darts are about the same size, so it's 3 to 4. Oops. All right, so what happens when that happens? So sometimes we get a little aggressive with our pulling, or for some reason the thread is a little bit weak. But you can deal with this in different ways. So if that happens and you want to make a knot, you can, do something like this, and then get a little pair of pliers. Right, so I've got my little pliers. They're a little smaller than my fingers. And I've got stuff stuck on them. There we go. Okay, and then you can make a knot using your little pliers. So now I've got a tiny, tiny, tiny version of what I do when I make my knots. And sometimes what I like to do is put a needle, or a pin, a pin. Here, let's get a smaller one. Put a pin through that hole, kind of right where I want the knot to be. And then I've got that tail. I'm gonna pin this to the surface of my table here. I don't know if you guys, I'll describe what's going on with that table. And then the pin sort of holds the spot where the knot is gonna go. So so now I just made a knot around that, and I think I might want to do 2 on top of each other. So I'll do that same thing again, where I make a knot using my pliers to help me out. And I'm going to draw that down. I'm not using a pin this time, but that's pretty good. Okay. All right, so I don't know, this thread could be weak enough that it's not worth using again for one reason or another. Sometimes thread gets sun damaged, gets dry rot if you've had it kicking around too long. So old thread is never that great to, count on. All right, so I'm just going to get like another stitch or 2 in there, and then bring my knot back away from the edge and do the ending knot. All right, so that is our first snout piece. and we have to keep track of where that little whoop-de-doo curve is for the top of the snout. So when I turn this inside out, I can see that this one is for this side. So then now that I've got one done, I can make my mirror image. So you just want to make sure that you stitch it the same way. So when they're inside out, they're mirror image this way. So get the other one stitched. I hope I'm not whispering too much on this. I'm just kind of, my face is like right next to the iPad, so I didn't want to talk too loud. All right, so we'll get these guys done. Oh, I'm like totally off camera. Here we go. Okay. There we go. Yeah, so maybe that skein of thread just got a little too much sun. Okay, so here we go. And we need our plier buddies again. So this one I don't get to move back, so I'll have to avoid it while I'm stitching. I'm just going to do one knot on that one. All right. Okay. So now we have our mirror image snouts. There we go. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is attach those snouts to the side headpieces. So let's see. Oh, here we go. We've got some thread on a needle. Let's get going on that. All right. Okay. All right. So get this right up next to the camera. So that's our snout. This is the little top of the nose, and that's going to sit right in there. So what I want to do is, actually, I think I'm going to start on this one. Okay. How do I want to do this? Okay, I want to start with the nose bit first. So here's my eyebrow, and here's my nose, little curve, and I've got them right. I've got my stitching is on this side and this side. I can't see my stitching. This is the outside. And then this side has the stitching. So stitching here and stitching visible here. So you can do that knot thing. Oh, actually, let's do that here too, so I can just show you. So if you don't want your knot to be near that seam, you can scoot it through here and then come along here, because that beginning knot right here gets in the way of that center seam again. But you can get it out of the way at the beginning of a stitch or at the end. So I wanted to also show you, I'm using, you can use either white or the body color thread on this seam. It doesn't really matter. I just picked up the body color because that's what I had threaded. I think on some of them I did white. I don't know if I made a determination if I liked one better than the other. So as I, sorry about that, bonked the camera. As I start to stitch, you can see that there's a curve happening here, right? And so we want to match that. We want to keep shifting this a little bit as we stitch. So we'll do a couple of stitches and then shift the curve. And here we go again. We're going to shift the curve. Are we still in focus? All right. Okay, so now I'm about halfway there, but I want to make sure that this point on the bottom of the chin and this point here are going to match up. So this is the neck, this is the bottom of the chin. So I'm going to scoot that all the way around so that I make sure those points match up before I do any more stitching. And I'll just take one of these little pins. These are those Spanish lace pins I recommend in my patterns that I like so much because they're just the right scale for these guys. Okay, so now we're pinned at the end and we can just continue stitching along here. Oh, so let me show you this too. So now, because of the way this is pinned, it's the way I was holding it before is a little harder. So I've got my finger inside here, and when I do each stitch, I'm going to go down, kind of straight down, and then tip up to grab this side. So see, now I'm going through one of my stitch lines, so that's a little trickier. Okay, go down and then tip up to grab the white. And then I think it's really just going over that seam that it gets complicated. Okay, and then you can go back to pinching like we were here. Let's see if we can work on the focus a little more. Okay, so ye gads. Seems like I'm flailing about, but everything's in such close quarters. Okay. So then I can scoot up again and tie my knot. Okay. All right, so then we have this. So we've got our nose dart, our chin dart, and one side of the head. So now we're just going to repeat that on the other side, and then I'll come back and we'll stitch the center seam on the head. All right, see you soon.